In a small village outside Accra, Ghana, there lived a grandmother named Mama Zola. She was 70 years old, her hands wrinkled from decades of kneading dough, her fingers stained from grinding spices, and her heart heavy with a secret worry that kept her awake at night. Mama Zola was a master of traditional Ghanaian cooking, not the kind you find in restaurants or cookbooks. The real kind, the ancient kind, the recipes passed down through generations, whispered from grandmother to granddaughter, each dish carrying stories older than memory itself. She knew how to make contamira stew the way her great-grandmother made it in 1890. She knew the exact moment to add the prekezi to palm nut soup so the flavors would sing. She knew which leaves to pick at dawn and which to gather at dusk. She knew the prayers to say while stirring banku, the songs to hum while pounding fufu. But there was a problem. Nobody cared anymore. Her three daughters had moved to the city, Accra, Kumasi, even one to London. They ate from restaurants, ordered pizza, bought prepackaged foods from supermarkets. When they visited, they praised her cooking. Mama, so delicious. But they never asked how to make it. Her grandchildren were worse, 8 grandchildren, all under 30, all glued to their phones. Grandma, this is nice, but it takes too long to cook. We want fast food. Grandma, nobody eats this old food anymore. It's too heavy, too oily. Grandma, we're modern now. We don't need these village recipes. Each comment was a small knife in Mama Zola's heart. One Sunday afternoon, Mama Zola prepared a feast for her family's visit. She woke up at 4 a.m. to start cooking. Red with ripe plantain, groundnut soup with chicken, jollof rice made the traditional way, not the quick way, kelivlu spiced exactly as her grandmother taught her, bofro fried in palm oil, not vegetable oil. By 2 p.m., the food was ready. The whole compound smelled like heaven. Her family arrived at 3 p.m. They ate quickly, barely tasting. Within 30 minutes, they were on their phones again. Mama Zola's youngest granddaughter, Ama, was showing everyone pictures on Instagram. Look, Grandma, this restaurant in Accra makes traditional food so fancy. They charge 200 cedis for jollof rice. Mama Zola looked at the photo. That wasn't jollof rice. It was rice with tomato sauce. No depth, no soul, no story. That's not real jollof, Mama Zola said quietly. Grandma, don't be old-fashioned. This is modern traditional food. It's what people want now. Mama Zola felt something break inside her chest. That night, after everyone left, she sat in her small kitchen surrounded by clay pots, wooden spoons, and grinding stones that had belonged to her mother and grandmother. She looked at these tools that had fed generations, and she realized something terrible. When I die, all of this dies with me. The recipes, the techniques, the stories, the prayers, the timing, the ancestral knowledge of 5 generations of women in her family, gone. Her daughters wouldn't remember. Her granddaughters never learned. In one generation, 150 years of culinary heritage would disappear like smoke. Mama Zola was not a woman who accepted defeat easily. At 70 years old, she made a decision that would change everything. I will write them down, every single recipe, before I die. There was one problem. Mama Zola could barely read or write. She had gone to school for only 3 years as a child in the 1960s. She could write her name, read simple words, but writing hundreds of recipes with precise measurements and instructions, that seemed impossible. But Mama Zola had lived 70 years. She had survived childbirth 6 times, 3 children lived, buried a husband, raised daughters through poverty, and fed a family through droughts and plenty. If she could do all that, she could learn to write better. The next morning, she went to the local school. The headmaster, Mr. Mensah, was surprised to see her. Mama Zola, is everything all right? I need to learn to write properly. Can you help me? Mr. Mensah was moved. He assigned a young teacher, Miss Akosua, to help Mama Zola with writing lessons twice a week. At 70 years old, Mama Zola became a student again. Miss Akosua was 25, fresh from university, full of modern ideas. At first, she didn't understand why this old woman wanted to write recipes. Mama, why not just record videos on a phone? Much easier. Videos have no soul, Mama Zola replied, and phones can break. But a book written by hand carries the spirit of the writer. When my granddaughters read my handwriting, they will feel my hands guiding theirs. Miss Akasua didn't understand. Not yet. The work began. Mama Zola bought a large notebook, 500 pages, the biggest she could find. She bought 3 pens, and she began to write. Recipe #1, a Benkwan palm nut soup. Her hand shook as she wrote. The letters were clumsy. It took her 2 hours to write 1 page. She had to stop and rest her cramping fingers. But she didn't give up. Every morning at 5 a.m., before cooking breakfast, she would write for 2 hours. Slowly, carefully, her handwriting improved. She didn't just write ingredients and steps, she wrote stories. This soup must be made in a clay pot, never metal. The clay holds the prayers of ancestors. When you stir clockwise 3 times, you honor the mothers who cooked before you. When the palm nut oil turns orange-red like sunset, that's when you add the contamere leaves, not before, or the soup will be bitter like regret. Each recipe was a story. Each ingredient had meaning. Each technique carried history. Recipe #45, wakie, rice and beans. My grandmother made this on Independence Day 1957 when Ghana became free. She said the rice and beans must cook together, not separate, just like our people must unite. The sorghum leaves that make it red, they represent the blood of those who fought for freedom. When you eat wakie, you eat history. By the time Mama Zola had written 100 recipes, 6 months had passed. Her family noticed she was always busy with some book, but they thought she was reading the Bible. Nobody asked what she was doing. Nobody offered to help. Mama Zola didn't mind. This was her mission, her purpose. 1 year into the project, Miss Akosua came to observe Mama Zola cooking, to help her write the recipes more clearly. That day changed Miss Akosua's life. Mama Zola was making omotuo, rice balls with groundnut soup. Miss Akosua watched as the old woman moved through the kitchen like a dancer, each motion purposeful, each ingredient added with prayer, each stir of the pot done with intention. "Why do you hum that song while pounding the rice?" Miss Akosua asked. This song is older than Ghana, older than colonialism. My great-great-grandmother sang it. The rhythm of the song matches the rhythm of pounding. If you pound without the song, the rice balls will be lumpy. The song makes them smooth. But how? Because cooking is not just chemistry, it's spirit. When you cook with love and memory and song, the food carries that. People taste it, even if they don't know why. Miss Akosua tasted the groundnut soup. She had eaten groundnut soup before. Her own mother made it. But this was different, deeper, richer. Every spoonful told a story. "Mama Zola," Miss Akosua said with tears in her eyes, "this isn't just recipes. This is our heritage, our identity, our ancestors speaking through food. Yes, child, now you understand. This is why I must write it down, before it's lost forever." From that day, Miss Akosua became more than a teacher. She became Mama Zola's partner. She helped edit the recipes, asked questions, learned the techniques, and most importantly, she started to care. Together, They worked for 3 more years. Recipe #Day 200 Kelewele spicy fried plantains. Recipe #Day 301 Tatale plantain pancakes. Recipe #Day 400 Inkate cake peanut brittle. Each recipe meticulously written, each story carefully preserved. Some recipes were for celebrations. This must only be cooked for weddings. To cook it on ordinary days brings misfortune. Some were for healing. When a child has fever, make this pepper soup with these exact herbs. Feed it warm, not hot. Sing this lullaby while feeding. The child will sleep and wake healthy. Some were for remembrance. We cook this on the anniversary of deaths. Each ingredient represents something. The fish for the journey to the ancestors, the tomatoes for the blood of life, the onions for tears we shed. Mama Zola was preserving more than food. She was preserving an entire worldview, a way of life, a connection to the past. By the time she reached recipe Hasig 500, Mama Zola was 73 years old. Her hands were more wrinkled, her eyes weaker, but the notebook was complete. 500 traditional recipes, handwritten, each one a treasure. She held the finished book in her lap and wept with joy and relief. I did it. I saved them. They won't be lost. But there was still one problem. Her family still didn't care. She tried to show her daughters the book. Mama, that's nice. You should rest now, not tire yourself with writing. She tried to show her granddaughters. Grandma, why didn't you just type it on a computer? This old handwriting is hard to read. Nobody understood. Nobody valued it. Mama Zola felt a deep sadness. She had worked so hard, but for whom? Who would use these recipes after she was gone? One night she prayed, God, I have saved these recipes, but if nobody wants them, what was the point? Please, let this work have meaning. She kept the notebook in her kitchen, wrapped in an old cloth, hoping that someday someone would care. 2 years later, Mama Zola fell ill. Her heart was failing. The doctor said she had maybe 6 months. At 75 years old, Mama Zola prepared for death. She called her family together. I'm dying soon. I want to tell you something important. Her 3 daughters and 8 grandchildren gathered, expecting her to divide property or give final advice. In my kitchen, wrapped in blue cloth, there is a notebook, 500 recipes. I spent 5 years writing them. They are our family's heritage. Please keep them safe, use them, don't let them be lost. Her eldest daughter, Aqua, nodded. Yes, Mama, we'll keep it safe. But Mama Zola saw the look in their eyes. They were humoring an old dying woman. They would keep the book out of respect, but they wouldn't use it. She died 3 months later, in her sleep, peacefully. The funeral was large. The entire village came. People remembered her kindness, her cooking, her gentle spirit. Her daughters divided her small possessions. The notebook went to her youngest daughter, Afua, who put it in a box with other family documents and forgot about it. 10 years passed. Mama Zola's youngest granddaughter, Amma, the one who had shown Instagram photos of modern traditional food, was now 28 years old. She had studied business in university and was working at a bank in Accra, but she was unhappy. The corporate job felt meaningless. She wanted to do something she cared about. One day, scrolling through social media, she saw a food trend. Authentic African cuisine was becoming popular globally. Restaurants in New York, London, Paris were serving real African food and charging premium prices. Amma had an idea. What if I opened a restaurant in Accra serving real traditional Ghanaian food? Not the fast food version, the authentic ancestral recipes. But there was a problem. Amma didn't know how to cook traditional food. Her mother didn't know either. They had lost that knowledge. She needed to research. She tried to find authentic traditional recipes online. Everything was vague, modernized, or wrong. YouTube videos were close, but missing something essential. Then she remembered. Grandma Zola used to cook the real food, but Grandma had died 10 years ago. Amma called her mother Efwa. Mom, do you remember how Grandma used to cook? Do you know her recipes? No, daughter, I never learned. I was too busy, too modern. I regret it now. Is there anything of Grandma's that might help? Any notes or... Efua suddenly remembered. Wait, there was a notebook. Grandma said it had recipes. Let me look. She searched through boxes in her storage room. Finally, she found it, a worn notebook, wrapped in blue cloth, pages yellowed with age. She sent a photo to Amma. Amma's hands trembled as she zoomed in on the photo. Her grandmother's handwriting, recipe after recipe, stories, instructions, prayers. Mom, send me that notebook, now. When the notebook arrived, Amma opened it with reverence. Recipe #1, abenkwan, palm nut soup. She read her grandmother's words. This soup must be made in a clay pot, never metal. The clay holds the prayers of ancestors. Tears began to fall. This wasn't just a cookbook. This was her grandmother's voice, speaking across death. This was history, heritage, love written by hand. Amal read for hours, 500 recipes, each one a revelation. She realized what she was holding, a treasure, a culinary heritage that was nearly lost. Her grandmother had saved it, and now it had found its way back. Amal made a decision. She would honor her grandmother's work. She quit her corporate job. She found a small space in Osu, Accra. She named it Mama Zola's Kitchen. The concept, authentic traditional Ghanaian cuisine, cooked exactly as Mama Zola's recipes prescribed. Clay pots, traditional techniques, ancestral methods. She hired old women from villages, women who remembered how to cook the old way. She showed them the notebook. They wept when they saw it. This is how my mother cooked. I thought these recipes were lost. Together, they brought Mama Zola's 500 recipes to life. The restaurant opened slowly. First, local Ghanaians came out of curiosity. They tasted the food and were shocked. This tastes like my grandmother's cooking. How did you? Word spread. Food bloggers came, Instagram influencers, then international food journalists. Discovering Mama Zola's Kitchen in Accra, New York Times, the restaurant that's preserving Ghana's culinary heritage, BBC. Ancestral recipes brought back to life, Food and Wine magazine. Within 2 years, Mama Zola's Kitchen became one of the most celebrated restaurants in West Africa. But Amma didn't stop there. She published the notebook as a book. Mama Zola's 500 Recipes, a grandmother's gift to the future. The book became a bestseller in Ghana, then across Africa, then globally. UNESCO took notice. They declared the recipes intangible cultural heritage, preserving them officially for future generations. Culinary schools in Ghana started teaching from Mama Zola's book. Cooking shows featured her recipes. Young Ghanaians who had forgotten their food heritage began learning again. And it all started with one 70-year-old grandmother who refused to let her heritage die. 5 years after opening the restaurant, Amma stood in the kitchen of Mama Zola's Kitchen, holding the original worn notebook. A food documentary crew was filming her. Tell us about your grandmother, the interviewer asked. Amma's eyes filled with tears. My grandmother tried to teach us. She cooked for us, showed us, told us stories, but we were young and foolish. We thought modern was better. We thought fast food was progress. We didn't listen. She spent 5 years writing this notebook. 5 years of an old woman with shaking hands, writing by hand because she believed it mattered. and we ignored it. We thought it was just an old woman's hobby. She died thinking her work was wasted. She died not knowing that 10 years later, her granddaughter would build an empire on her recipes, that her handwriting would be published in books, that her knowledge would feed thousands, that her name would be known across the world. I never got to thank her. I never got to tell her that she was right, that the old ways matter, that heritage is precious, that grandmothers hold wisdom we're too foolish to see when we're young. Amma looked directly at the camera, tears streaming down her face. If your grandmother is still alive, listen to her. Learn from her. Ask her to teach you before it's too late. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait until she's gone to realize what you lost. The documentary aired across Africa. It went viral online. Thousands of young people reached out to their grandmothers, asking to learn family recipes. A movement began. Hashtag Save Our Recipes. Young people documenting their grandmother's cooking before it was too late. Cooking classes between generations, grandmothers teaching granddaughters, heritage preserved through food, all because one grandmother refused to give up. Today, at Mama Zola's kitchen, there's a wall dedicated to her memory. Her photograph hangs large, a smiling 70-year-old woman holding a wooden spoon. Below it, in a glass case, sits the original notebook, open to recipe #1. Visitors come from around the world to see it. They read her handwriting. They touch the glass. Some cry. They understand this notebook is more than recipes. It's a love letter from a grandmother to a future she wouldn't live to see. Miss Akosua, now 40 years old and a culinary professor, often brings her students to see the notebook. This is why I became a teacher, she tells them. Because Mama Zola showed me that our heritage is precious, that an old woman's knowledge is worth more than any university degree, that when we lose our elders, we lose libraries. Every grandmother is a library. Every recipe is a book. Every technique is a chapter. When an old person dies, a library burns. Mama Zola saved her library. She wrote it down by hand at 70 years old when her hands shook and her eyes failed. She preserved it for us. Now it's our responsibility. What are we preserving? What knowledge are we saving? What will we pass to the next generation? The students sit in silence, understanding the weight of what they're seeing, and somewhere, perhaps, the spirit of Mama Zola smiles. Because her work wasn't wasted, her 5 years of writing, of struggling, of hoping that someone would care, it all mattered. The recipes live on, the stories live on, the heritage lives on. And every time someone cooks from her notebook, every time someone reads her words, every time someone teaches their child the old way of cooking, Mama Zola's hands guide theirs. She died thinking she had failed, but she saved a nation's culinary soul. Still moral of the story, our elders carry knowledge that seems ordinary until it's gone. They hold recipes, techniques, stories, songs, prayers, wisdom passed down through generations. We think there's always time to learn. We think the old ways don't matter in the modern world. But heritage isn't old-fashioned. It's the foundation of who we are. When we lose our traditional knowledge, our recipes, our crafts, our languages, our customs, we lose part of our identity. We become disconnected from our ancestors, unmoored from our history. Mama Zola understood something most people learn too late. The things that seem simple and ordinary are often the most precious. A recipe isn't just food, it's memory, culture, connection across time. She also understood that preservation requires action. Heritage doesn't save itself. Someone has to write it down, teach it, pass it forward. At 70 years old, when most people rest, Mama Zola worked harder than ever because she saw a crisis others couldn't see, the silent disappearance of cultural knowledge. And she understood something else. The young don't always value what the old protect. That's okay, save it anyway, preserve it anyway, write it down anyway, because someday, when the young become old enough to understand what they're losing, they'll search for what you saved. Mama Zola's granddaughter learned too late to appreciate her grandmother. But because Mama Zola preserved her knowledge anyway, Amma could still access it after death. The notebook became a bridge across time and death. The question for all of us: what are we preserving? What knowledge do we hold that will die with us unless we write it down, teach it, pass it forward? Your grandmother's recipe for soup might seem ordinary, but it's also history, memory, love, heritage. Don't wait until it's too late to care. Ask your elders to teach you. Write down what they know. Record their voices. Learn their skills. Because someday you'll be the elder, and the young will come looking for the knowledge you should have saved. Be like Mama Zola. Preserve it now, before it's lost forever. Now it's your turn. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something right now. First, hit that like button. It helps share Mama Zola's story with more people who need to hear it. Second, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We share African folktales every week that inspire, teach, and preserve our heritage. Third, and this is the most important one, go to the Hourments right now and share your grandmother's special recipe. It can be anything: her jollof rice, her pepper soup, her porridge, her stew, her banku, her plantain dish, her groundnut soup, any dish she made that you remember. Don't just write the name, tell us what made it special, when did she cook it, what do you remember about watching her make it, what ingredient did she add that made it different? What memory comes to mind when you think of that dish? Write it down in the comments right now, before you forget. Because here's the truth: if you don't write it down, if you don't preserve it, if you don't share it, it will be lost. Your grandmother's recipe is part of your family's heritage. Don't let it disappear. And if your grandmother is still alive, put down this phone right now, call her, and ask her to teach you her special recipe. Don't wait. Don't assume there's time. Learn it, write it down, cook it, teach your children. That's how heritage survives. One recipe at a time, one story at a time, one memory at a time. So go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment your grandmother's special recipe below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who still has their grandmother, someone who's been meaning to learn family recipes, someone who values heritage, share this video with them right now. Let's start a movement. Let's preserve our recipes. Let's honor our grandmothers. Starting right now, starting with you. What's your grandmother's special recipe? Write it in the comments. I'm reading every single one.